Remember when you were a kid in the 70s and thought those wild concept cars and funky hatchbacks were the coolest things on four wheels? Sure, they seemed futuristic at the time, but let's be honest, some of those 1970s cars were just plain awful ideas. In hindsight, it's a wonder they made it off the drawing board. Get ready to take a fun trip down memory lane as we count down 6 of the most misguided automotive creations of the 1970s. Let's get into it. The AMC Pacer, the fishbowl on wheels. Remember the AMC Pacer? That quirky, compact car with the huge glass area and unique styling that made it look like a fishbowl on wheels? While innovative in theory, the Pacer's design had some major flaws. That massive glass area might have provided great visibility, but it also made the interior a greenhouse in warm weather. And the wide body and short wheelbase made for clumsy handling. Those wild looks certainly made the Pacer stand out from the crowd, but not always in a good way. Critics panned its awkward proportions and odd styling details like the huge bumpers and fender caps. American Motors had high hopes that the Pacer would be an affordable, fuel-efficient compact to compete with imports. But the reality was quite different. With its heavy construction and thirsty engines, the Pacer guzzled gas nearly as much as a full-size car. Sure, fold-down rear seats provided decent cargo space, but uncomfortable seating and a lack of rear legroom made it cramped for passengers. Not exactly ideal for an economy compact. While sales fizzled after its 1975 debut, the Pacer did develop a quirky cult following over time. Today, its distinctive looks have made it an oddball automotive icon of the 70s. An idea that seemed good at the time, but just didn't quite deliver in reality. The Ford Pinto. Next one on the list is the Ford Pinto. This infamous subcompact car rolled off the assembly line in the early 1970s with a fatal design flaw. The gas tank could rupture and catch fire in a rear-end collision. Imagine being in a fender bender, only to find your car erupting in flames around you. That's the terrifying reality drivers faced with the Pinto. Ford was aware of the risks, but decided it was cheaper to pay potential lawsuits than redesign the car. Ford's decision to value profits over safety proved disastrous. At least 27 people died in Pinto fires before the car was discontinued in 1980. The company faced numerous lawsuits and a massive recall that ultimately cost far more than redesigning the Pinto properly. In the infamous Grimshaw v. Ford Motor Company case, the automaker was hit with a $128 million judgment after a horrific crash left a teenager horribly burned. The jury clearly wanted to make an example out of Ford's reprehensible cost-benefit analysis mindset. Pinto became a case study in corporate ethics gone wrong. Its very name is now synonymous with companies putting profits before people. While Ford claimed the fires resulted from vigorous driving, the truth was the Pinto's gas tank design was a ticking time bomb. The debacle ushered in a new era of safety regulations and government oversight of the auto industry. Decades later, the Pinto remains a grim reminder that cutting corners on safety is never worth the risk or human cost. Companies simply can't put a price tag on people's lives. The AMC Gremlin. You know this car is ugly when even the automaker couldn't help but poke fun at its unconventional design. The AMC Gremlin was truly one of the most bizarre-looking cars to come out of the 1970s. Introduced in 1970, the Gremlin was American Motors Corporation's first-ever subcompact car. It had an unusual, truncated rear end that gave it a distinct hunchback appearance. AMC's president at the time even joked, "It's so ugly that folks will be scared to keep it in their garage." But the company embraced the quirky look, with marketing that leaned into the car's reptilian name and odd aesthetics. Despite its funky frog-like styling, the Gremlin did offer some practical benefits. Its short length made it very easy to park, and the hatchback design provided decent cargo space for its size. There was even an optional V8 engine for decent performance. But let's be real, nobody was buying a Gremlin for its looks or speed. This was pure function over form taken to an extreme. While widely mocked during its 1970 to 1978 production run, the Gremlin managed to sell over 670,000 units. Not exactly a huge success, but enough to avoid being an outright sales disaster. The Gremlin's development was driven by a sense of urgency as American Motors Corporation sought to compete with the growing popularity of foreign subcompact cars like the Volkswagen Beetle and the Toyota Corolla. The project was spearheaded by AMC's chief designer, Dick Teague, who faced the challenge of creating a distinctive and affordable car on a limited budget. The Gremlin's design was essentially a chopped-down version of the AMC Hornet, which allowed the company to save on production costs. Despite its odd appearance, the Gremlin was a pioneer in the American automotive industry. It was the first American subcompact car, launching 6 months before Ford's Pinto and almost 2 years before Chevrolet's Vega. However, the Gremlin's build quality was often criticized. Early models suffered from reliability issues, and the interior materials were seen as cheap and unattractive. The car's handling was also less than stellar, with a tendency to be unstable at higher speeds. AMC attempted to address some of these issues over the years with various updates and improvements. For example, the 1973 model year saw the introduction of a redesigned front end and better interior options. Nevertheless, the Gremlin's reputation for being quirky and somewhat unreliable persisted. Despite its flaws, the Gremlin did have a loyal following and remains a nostalgic oddity for car enthusiasts today. Its story highlights the risks and challenges of innovation in an era of significant change for the automotive industry. The Chevrolet Vega. You've probably heard horror stories about the Chevrolet Vega. This ill-fated compact car seemed like an innovative idea in the early 1970s, as Americans sought smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. But in reality, the Vega was a rust-prone, oil-burning lemon that tarnished Chevy's reputation. One of the Vega's biggest failings was its propensity to develop rust at an alarming rate. While GM wanted to keep costs down, they cut too many corners with the Vega's unibody design and cheap materials. Shoddy rust-proofing and exposed metal meant Vega bodies dissolved into piles of orange debris frighteningly fast. Even from the factory, many Vegas rolled off the line with chips and scratches that immediately started rusting. Within a few years of ownership, quarter panels, fenders, and doors were often Swiss cheesed with corrosion holes. Good luck finding a solid Vega today. Another notorious Vega flaw? Its ravenous appetite for engine oil. The compact aluminum mill was an innovative design for the time, but suffered from low-tension piston rings. This caused excessive oil consumption, as much as 1 quart every 600 miles in some cases. Imagine having to constantly refill your Vega's oil every other gas station visit. Failure to do so risked costly engine damage or failure. For many frustrated owners, these constant oil top-ups were the last straw before sending their troublesome Vega to the junkyard. While an ambitious effort to build a simple, affordable, and efficient compact car, the Chevrolet Vega failed to deliver on its promising concept. Its reputation for being a rust-prone, oil-burning lemon persists over 40 years later as a cautionary tale of cutting too many corners in the pursuit of profits. The Vega's failures taught GM hard lessons in quality control and lived up to its name as one of the worst cars produced in the 1970s. For prospective used Vega buyers today, caveat emptor, let the car's infamous reputation forever be a warning. The Ford Mustang II. The Ford Mustang, introduced in 1964, quickly became an iconic symbol of American muscle and performance. It captured the hearts of car enthusiasts with its powerful engines, sleek design, and an aura of freedom and rebellion. However, the Mustang's legacy hit a significant bump in the road with the introduction of the Ford Mustang II in 1974. This model, often criticized for its departure from the original spirit, is a testament to how market pressures and misguided decisions can lead to an automotive misstep. The Mustang II was a stark departure from its predecessor. Based on the subcompact Ford Pinto platform, it was significantly smaller and lighter. The original Mustang's long hood and short deck proportions were replaced with a more compact, less aggressive look. The Mustang II was offered with a four-cylinder engine as standard, a stark contrast to the powerful V8S that had defined the Mustang's earlier years. Even the optional V6 and V8 engines were detuned to meet the new emission standards, resulting in lackluster performance. The interior, while more refined and luxurious than previous models, couldn't compensate for the loss of the Mustang's trademark muscle car essence. The emphasis on comfort and economy over raw power and performance alienated many Mustang enthusiasts. Critics argued that the Mustang II sacrificed its soul to meet regulatory and market demands. When the Mustang II was released, it received mixed reactions. On one hand, it was praised for its improved fuel efficiency and better handling compared to the larger, bulkier models of the early 1970s. It even won the Motor Trend Car of the Year award in 1974, highlighting its appeal in a market increasingly concerned with fuel economy and practicality. However, longtime Mustang fans and automotive purists were largely unimpressed. The reduced power, smaller size, and less aggressive design were seen as a betrayal of what the Mustang represented. Sales figures, though initially strong, reflected this dichotomy. The Mustang II managed to sell well in its first few years, benefiting from the oil crisis and the public's shifting preferences. But its popularity waned as the novelty wore off and the shortcomings became more apparent. The Ford Mustang II's legacy is a complicated one. It represents a period in automotive history where compromises were necessary, but it also serves as a cautionary tale about losing touch with a brand's core identity. The Mustang II's failure to resonate with its original audience highlighted the dangers of straying too far from the qualities that made a product successful in the first place. Despite its shortcomings, the Mustang II played a crucial role in keeping the Mustang name alive during a challenging period for the automotive industry. Its focus on fuel efficiency and practicality reflected the realities of its time, and it helped Ford navigate through the oil crisis and economic uncertainty. However, the lessons learned from the Mustang II were evident in the design of future models. When Ford introduced the third-generation Mustang in 1979, it returned to a more performance-oriented approach, eventually revitalizing the brand and rekindling the passion of Mustang enthusiasts. Porsche 914. At the last, we have Porsche 914. In the realm of sports cars, Porsche has a storied legacy of producing iconic models that blend performance, style, and precision engineering. However, the Porsche 914, introduced in the early 1970s, stands out not for its acclaim, but for its divisive reception and departure from Porsche's traditional ethos. The Porsche 914 was born from a collaborative effort between Porsche and Volkswagen, designed to replace the aging Porsche 912 and serve as a more affordable entry into the Porsche lineup. While it aimed to combine Porsche's performance with Volkswagen's practicality, the 914 fell short of expectations on multiple fronts. One of the primary criticisms of the Porsche 914 was its unconventional styling. Unlike the sleek and aerodynamic curves of its predecessors like the Porsche 911, the 914 featured a flat, Targa-style roof and squared-off design cues. Its appearance lacked the aggressive and distinctive Porsche aesthetic that enthusiasts had come to expect, leading to mixed reviews and a lukewarm reception in the market. Performance-wise, the Porsche 914 also failed to live up to the Porsche name. Initially offered with modest engines, including a 1.7-liter flat-4 sourced from Volkswagen, the 914 lacked the exhilarating acceleration and handling prowess that defined Porsche's sports cars. While later iterations offered more powerful engines, they still struggled to compete with other sports cars of the era in terms of pure performance and driving dynamics. Furthermore, the build quality of the Porsche 914 was a point of contention. Issues such as rust-prone body panels and mechanical reliability concerns plagued the car, tarnishing Porsche's reputation for engineering excellence and reliability. In retrospect, the Porsche 914 remains a controversial chapter in Porsche's history, a departure from the marque's high standards of automotive excellence, and a reminder that even legendary manufacturers can stumble when straying too far from their core principles. So there you have it, folks. A handful of oddball cars from the 1970s that probably should have never made it out of the concept phase. But hey, hindsight is 20/20ths. At the time, some of them seemed innovative, but looking back now, some of them were just downright silly. The 70s were definitely an experimental time for automakers, and not all of those experiments panned out. But that's part of what makes cars from that era so interesting to look back on now. Even if you wouldn't be caught dead driving some of these wacky wheels today, you've got to admit they've got character. And character counts for something, right? Whatever you think of them, hopefully this little stroll down memory lane sparked some fond memories of the cars you knew back in the day. And if it taught you about a few weird rides you never knew existed, even better. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.